A long campaign is now.
This is the car market in Mogadishu.
NATO's military success against
many Western nations.
This is on assignment.
Welcome to On Assignment, everybody. I'm Philip Alexio, along with Alex Villarreal.
Yes, in this episode, we talk with a VOA video journalist just back from Ukraine.
Human trafficking on the rise in southern Thailand, why Muslims escaping Burma are especially vulnerable.
In the U.S., laws on gay rights are changing rapidly, along with American attitude.
And hello, Hollywood, foreign filmmaking students flocking to the City of Angels to learn behind the lens.
It's these stories and more, all straight ahead on Assignment.
And we are joined here at the top of the show by video journalist Arash Arabasadi, who has been part of the VOA team covering events in Ukraine. And welcome back, Arash. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's really nice to be back.
Arash, it's great to have you back. And you were there in Ukraine with VOA correspondent Brian Padden, covering these events in the eastern part of the country where separatists have overtaken government buildings. This really wasn't a very easy assignment for journalists either. Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, this wasn't Club Med. The eastern part of the country has its own special challenges, but when you're a journalist and you're a Western and you're an American journalist and your news outlet's name has America in the title, we were not well received. And we were there for a few days before our movements really became limited. We were out in public areas, and when you're surrounded by people who are, again, aggressive towards Western journalists, they can make you from far away. So after a day or two of being seen at these rallies, there wasn't much movement that we could do. The second we'd show up, they would come and forcibly escort us out.
Now, you, I'm sure, have had a variety of scary moments that have occurred, I presume, and tell us about at least some of those that you've encountered.
In the eastern part of Ukraine was the first time where I've ever actually had somebody try to knock over the tripod or try to forcibly remove the camera from my hand. Yeah, right. I mean, at Cairo last year, this is a very tight, dense population of rebellion, and here in Ukraine it was just small groups of people, but they were so angry at us, and they were pushing Brian Padden, they were pushing me, and yeah, there was one guy came and ripped a piece of the camera off, and I had to take it back from his hand. That's a first. That's a first.
What kinds of things were they saying to you?
Some of them I probably shouldn't repeat on air, but they were a lot of stuff about, holding signs saying CIA is not welcome here and Americans go home. And they really had no interest in talking to us because these small groups didn't really see the value of talking to American journalists. They would grant all kinds of interviews, really almost to anybody, but really especially to Russian media outlets. But when it came to us, not at all, and it's hard to argue with somebody who's got a mask and an axe in his hand.
Now, of course, we've lost some journalists here at Voice of America, and you're in a danger zone, and you're around crowds, which you've been around before. Were you fearful, I guess, for your life while you were there, or was it not quite like that?
There was a moment where we went to a municipal building that had been taken over by separatists. It's hard to call them pro-Russian or whatever. They were separatists from Kiev. And in order to get to that building, we had to go through several hundred people who were there as part of a rally. And they weren't letting us go through. And what went from, no, you're not allowed in, very quickly escalated to us being surrounded. And us being surrounded, again, it's one thing to be surrounded by young men in masks and who have hand weapons, but it's another thing altogether when there are people my parents' age there and they're shouting all these awful things at us. There was a point where when we were surrounded and they're screaming at us, that was probably one of the more intense moments in my career as a journalist, dealing with a large crowd situation because they were so angry at us.
Tell us about this incident, Arash. We know that you had a moment when a military helicopter exploded near where you were. What happened?
Yeah, that type of excitement I can take all day because that's just great. We were in the town of Kramatorsk, and it was really a slow shooting day. Not much going on. We're at this airfield where the special ops forces had set up, and as we're driving out of town, we hear the loudest boom I'd ever heard, and I immediately tell the driver, this is how you know that you're this kind of journalist or that kind of journalist. We're running toward the gunfire. So we hear this explosion and tell the driver, go that way. And we go, and there's this black billowing smoke, and it's literally blocking out the sun. It turns out that it was a military chopper, got hit with an RPG, and everything in that chopper, like bullets and rockets, is now exploding. And we get there at this moment, I jump out of the car and I've got the camera rolling and this piece of the helicopter just explodes and almost in slow motion, we watch it flying right at us. Get down. I mean, if the camera was shooting 3D, it was such a cool shot. So it's coming right at us, we dive out of the way and got the camera rolling, and we use the car as cover to get around to some safety, and we're talking to some local villagers there, and while we're talking to them, it continues exploding. These loud, earth-shaking booms. It was awesome to be able to capture that on video. So once we got out, took a head count, counted fingers and toes, and everybody was there in one piece. It was like, awesome, we did a great job
What do
today.
you take away from a trip like this when you go there and you come back? What do you take with you, bring back?
So this was my second time to Kiev in the past month and a half, to Ukraine. And what I take from this, I guess, is you build a relationship when you're in the field with somebody, with Brian Padden. He and I have worked together before, but when you're in these types of circumstances that your lives are a little bit on the line. There's this bond and this camaraderie, and you remember that. You tell that story years later of, remember that time when we almost didn't make it out of that crowd? So that's a pretty nice thing to be able to take away.
We're going to have you back on the program, I'm sure, for a lot more stories that Arash Erbasadi is going to bring to us. So thanks for coming on the program.
Always
Glad
a
you're
pleasure.
safe.
Thank you
Of
so much
course.
for your bravery.
Thanks,
really,
guys.
we appreciate it.
All right, time now to take a break, but when we do come back, escaping persecution in Burma only to find more trouble in Thailand. You're watching On Assignment. In southern Thailand, human trafficking is on the rise while authorities struggle to control criminal gangs that capture illegal immigrants and transport them to other countries.
Thousands of Muslim Rohingya fleeing Burma, also known as Myanmar, have ended up under the brutal control of these gangs. Steve Sanford reported on the abuse that many of these victims face, and he talked with me about his coverage and the plight of the Rohingya in Burma and beyond.
In southern Thailand, a chain of remote islands conceals a growing problem for Thai authorities. Thousands of Muslim Rohingya escaping persecution in Burma often begin the journey to Malaysia voluntarily, but end up under the brutal control of criminal gangs in Thailand.
Steve, they're often called stateless and unwanted. Who are the Rohingya?
Well, the Rohingya are a ethnic Muslim group based primarily in Western Burma, in Bangladesh and India. Currently, there are about 700,000 of them in Rakhine State in Western Burma, but most of them are classified as stateless due to the Burmese military implementing a law in 1982, which basically eliminated them from the national standings.
So your story, Steve, focuses on the Rohingyas' escape out of Burma and their attempt to get to Malaysia, but somehow they end up in Thailand. How does that happen?
Well, quite often when they're leaving Burma, escaping the ongoing violence that's occurring over there right now, and the conflict, quite often they will pay to get a seat on a boat. They pay the smugglers in Burma a certain set fee, and then they set off, usually with a destination such as Malaysia. En route, they will stop in Thailand, and quite often they will be transferred from one group to another. Sometimes there have been indicators that certain Thai authorities are involved with the criminal gangs, and they end up in a case that might have started out as a smuggling case, and it transforms into more of a human trafficking case.
One asylum seeker who took police to a former trafficking camp said there was little food and water, and they were beaten often if they couldn't pay more money for their release.
They forced me to call my brother. I told him that he had to pay the brokers for my freedom. But my brother had no money, so the brothers kicked and punched me until my family could raise enough funds.
You talk about the Thai authorities being involved potentially in the smuggling operations, but they're also involved in these criminal gangs?
These trafficking routes between Burma and Malaysia have been well established over the last few decades. The Thai authorities quite often are aware of these trafficking gangs. Money is to be made, whether it's in looking the other way or helping in getting them through Thailand to Malaysia. There are also a lot of Thais that are sympathetic to the Rohingya. They understand the situation they're facing right now in Burma. At the same time, there is a huge amount of refugees from other countries that are coming through Thailand. So it's a bit of a difficult situation on both sides.
What's being done about this then at the government level in Thailand? Because you're talking about authorities being complicit in these operations. So are there efforts in place to stop these gangs?
I think there are elements of the Thai police force that are actively trying to apprehend these criminal gangs, but there are also members within the different authorities that are complicit, and therefore it makes it a lot more difficult for the authorities that want to stop these activities from doing so.
So Steve, what's the future then for the Rohingya? It seems like the root of this problem really is in Burma. So how are they going to be treated in the future? Do we see any change?
Well, I think you're exactly right there. Basically, the situation in Burma has got dramatically worse in recent months. Groups that have been associated with the military, Buddhist nationalists, have been linked to the military. They have basically cut off humanitarian aid to the camps that are now holding about 140,000 displaced Rohingya in Rakhine State. They're lacking medical aid. There are daily preventable deaths that are occurring, according to recent reports. So I think the situation in Rakhine State, I mean, a lot of people are saying it is the same conditions as a genocide. It's a slow-burning genocide, a lot of people are saying. Western businesses, Western governments need to be aware of what the situation, how drastic it is getting over there. Yeah, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of attention on it right now.
And Steve says in addition to humanitarian workers not getting into Burma's Rakhine State, media also do not have free access, and there are reports of cholera and other preventable diseases not being treated there.
And when you consider that the monsoon season is coming as well, things just get worse and these people just don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah,
So
really
sad
tough spot,
stories,
yeah.
All right, well, time for our short break, but when we come back, changing attitudes and legislation concerning gays in the U.S. You're watching On Assignment. Here in the United States, same-sex marriage rights are expanding, and since President Barack Obama declared his support for same-sex marriage 2 years ago, the number of U.S. states where gays can legally marry has almost tripled.
Right, and it's not just the laws that are changing here. Public attitudes have also shifted. VOA congressional correspondent Michael Bowman told me about a family he encountered that epitomizes this swing in thought. Take a look.
The dynamic is simple. Gay people feel increasingly comfortable revealing their sexuality, causing family, friends, and peers to rethink attitudes and beliefs.
Mike, this story that you did, very interesting in that you didn't just focus on the gay couple, but actually on the mother of one of the men. Tell us about them and why you wanted to do the story in this way.
The polling data shows that what is driving the shift in public attitudes when it comes to gay marriage are heterosexuals who are changing their mind as a result of knowing a gay person. Maybe a gay son, it could be a gay nephew, it could be a gay cousin, it could be a gay coworker, it could be a gay neighbor, but that's what's driving it. And I wanted to capture that. And the star of this spot really is the mother. It's not the gay couple. It's the mother who came around on the issue of homosexuality as a result of having a gay son.
And tell us about how she ended up coming to that change.
She had a real crisis of faith when her son, Chris, came out to her.
You weren't even supposed to say the word homosexual. It was a sin that was far above all other sins.
Her immediate reaction was to deny it, to try to convince Chris that he wasn't gay, When that didn't work, she tried to enroll him in an ex-gay ministry, a place where gay people can go and they are promised a cure for homosexuality through faith. And she says that she bombarded him with pamphlets about God's design for human sexuality. And none of that worked.
I didn't think that unless he changed, that he could go to heaven.
I know what the Bible says. I know what religion says. But I also am a living example of what it's like to be inside of someone who is gay. I'm the person who's in here. I know how it evolved. It wasn't a choice.
Such a powerful example of this. Are there other noteworthy examples of people who were once against homosexuality and have now come around?
Former Vice President Dick Cheney has a lesbian daughter. Republican Senator Rob Portman, who has a gay son. The attorney who unsuccessfully argued to retain California's ban on same-sex marriage, argued all the way to the Supreme Court, announced last month that he is now helping to plan his daughter's wedding to a woman.
Homosexuality as a topic used to be something that you never really heard talked about openly in this country decades ago. And now it seems to be much more accepted. So the public opinion on gay marriage, how has that shifted?
If you look back 20 years ago, the public support for same-sex marriage was less than 30%. Today it is almost 60%. If you go back just 10 years ago, there was no place in the United States where gay people could legally wed. Now it is legal in 17 states plus the nation's capital. And what the courts are saying is people are entitled to their personal convictions, their moral beliefs, their religious beliefs. However, that does not constitute a constitutionally valid reason to limit the civil rights of gay people or their life possibilities.
As we're seeing a shift in the United States toward more acceptance of homosexuality and gay marriage, we're seeing the opposite in other areas of the world. Tell us about sort of what the picture is across the globe.
I think most of Western Europe is sort of the most liberal when it comes to same-sex marriage. Then you have Canada, where same-sex marriage is legal. You have South Africa, where same-sex marriage is legal. You have Argentina, where same-sex marriage is legal. In certain other areas, the trend is going the exact reverse. There are nations in Africa where they have recently instituted new laws to punish people for being gay.
Now, Mike, finally, why does public opinion matter in this when all the decisions seem to be up to the courts? I mean, how does the public influence court decisions?
Courts are very reluctant to get too far out ahead of public opinion, to render a decision that's going to provoke absolute outrage and chaos in the country. And so to the extent that same-sex marriage advocates can continue to see public opinion swing in favor of same-sex marriage, it gives justices a bit more of a comfort zone to rule in the way, possibly, that the same-sex marriage advocates would like to see.
And again, that was VOA's Michael Bowman. Now, many of the U.S. court cases we're talking about involve challenges to these voter-approved bans on gay marriage that we've seen in individual U.S. states. But meanwhile, Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts, is marking 10 years now since it became the first U.S. state to legalize the practice.
All right, well, we go next to Hollywood, where aspiring filmmakers go to break into the movie business. No surprise then that Los Angeles universities are a magnet for film students far and wide.
VOA's Mike O'Sullivan looked into what some foreign film students are doing in Los Angeles, and he talked with our very own Rebecca Ward. So as they say, quiet on set, action.
Graduate student Ivy Lin from China's Shandong province is putting finishing touches on her student film. It's a tale of cultural differences, romance, and Chinese cooking. She says producing the feature is preparing her for a career.
I hope to do like film producing, marketing in the future, especially like between the US and China.
What was so striking about the story you did is you featured several international students who hope to bring their skills back to their home countries. But I'm wondering how many end up staying because Hollywood is such a big draw.
Well, it is a draw, and they all say they want to at least get some experience in Hollywood, because this is really the center of the international movie business. And, you know, I think a lot will end up staying, and what we're seeing increasingly, say in the case of China, is international productions. So maybe the deals are put together partly in Hollywood and partly in Beijing or Shanghai, and some of the production is done here, some is done there, and in the future we may see that with other countries as well. Graduate student Ivy Lin got help from Melinda Pan, a student from Beijing who is doing the final production work on her own student feature. She says China and the United States have many co-productions, including Iron Man 3.
I think sci-fi films probably are the most popular ones because there are so many skills required, and they have big box office in China too. But for me, I like sweet and touching stories.
So I think we're going to see a lot more back and forth with kids who are from overseas areas and who are trained here in the LA area.
So you did feature one student who was putting together her student film. I think you saw the screening. What did you think? I mean, how talented are these kids?
Well, they are very talented, and they get very good training here because they're working with people who have industry experience. It's such a huge industry in LA, and you've got people who have both academic training and the practical skills. You know, one of the students said to me that, I said, what did you learn in the process of making the student film? And she said, I learned how to create a project from beginning to end. She said, I never thought I could write a complete script. She was, you know, basically the executive producer and the producer, and did some of the direction, and, you know, did the location scouting, and did the casting, and of course the post-production, which is the film editing from start to finish. She put a project together and said, you know, at this point I feel that I could go out to a Hollywood studio and I have something to offer.
And I imagine they have some pretty good internships in Hollywood.
Well, they do, and in fact they have, a lot of these schools have prominent alumni. For example, another Cal State campus, Cal State Northridge, has Michael Eisner, who was the former head of Disney, as an alumnus. George Lucas went to USC, and a lot of people who don't have such big names but are prominent, and maybe major film editors or sound editors, or working in post-production houses, and they will invite students from their alma mater into their business and help give them some training.
So what, in the end, what do they have to produce in order to graduate from the film school?
Well, they have to complete their courses, and they have to finish a student production. And if they want to do a good job, they can raise some outside money. And in the case of this one young woman, Ivy Lin, she went on a internet site called Indiegogo. She raised $5,000, and she got professional actors who were willing to work for little or nothing, just because they need the credit. You know, there are a lot of waiters in LA who are occasional actors who will do almost anything to get into a production. And got people to donate. You know, supermarket owner will donate, say, okay, come in and film here. And so you just beg, borrow, and do whatever you can to put the project together. And with any luck, you'll have a film that will be a calling card and get you into the door of a major studio.
Mike O'Sullivan reporting for VOA from Los Angeles. A lot of fun stuff those kids are doing out there.
Yeah.
Looks like something I'd like to do. Go back in time, right?
Agree. Yeah, no, it really is. And unfortunately, while we're sticking with our film lingo, it's time for us to say cut.
Cut!
Yep, we've reached the end of our show, but we want to invite you to tune in next week, of course, for another chat we're going to have about Ukraine with VOA's Brian Padden. We talked about him earlier, who just returned from there.
And you can watch, as you recall, all of our shows online at voanews.com, Facebook, and YouTube.
Well, for now, from all of us here at On Assignment, thank you so much for watching, and so long from Washington.